Many Naruto fans think that Rock Lee can win against Toji by just dropping his weights. But while those weights were heavy, this fight is not what you think it is. We'll do things differently for this matchup. This time, we will discuss each stats of both characters one by one and see how they do against each other. Since there are different versions of Rock Lee, we will be looking at each one of them and compare them with the only version of Toji in Jujutsu Kaisen. Toji versus base Rock Lee. Let's first talk about speed. For starters, Toji was able to dodge Curse Technique Lapse Blue's Field of Attraction before Gojo even realized it. Now, I know that Gojo was tired at this point, but even if we grant that, it doesn't negate that Toji was one of the fastest characters in Jujutsu Kaisen. We don't have many feats that outright prove this, but in chapter 196, Maki was regarded as Toji's equal, and that Maki was able to dodge the attacks of Cursed Spirit Naoya, who was moving at Mach 3, which is 3 times the speed of sound. And let's not forget that Toji was more than capable of killing the whole Zenin clan, along with Naobito Zenin, who is the fastest sorcerer after Gojo. Base Lee, on the other hand, was too fast for Sasuke's 2 Tomoe Sharingan and casually caught 20 leaves before they even touched the ground. However, he struggled against the attacks of sound ninjas who would attack at the speed of sound. But at that time, Lee had his weights on. You know, the same weights he dropped in his fight against Gaara and started creating after images. So there has been a lot of debate on how fast that version of Rock Lee is. Many people liken it to Flash and think that Lee is moving faster than light, but that's not the case. After images aren't entirely related to speed, but instead how your eyes see that object. To give you an example, an airplane flies at the speed of 600 miles per hour. However, to the human eye, it looks as if it's moving like a snail. On the other hand, if a basketball moved at the same speed, there's no way you'd be able to see it. That's why we cannot use this unclear criteria to say that Lee is faster than the speed of sound, especially when the manga doesn't mention it. There's also a calculation according to which the speed of Gaara's sand is Mach 58. So based off of that, Lee's speed without weights should be higher than that, but I don't think that is consistent with the series, because even with his weights on, Lee was catching up with Gaara's sand and even dodged multiple attacks. Does that mean he was now faster than the speed of sound? Moreover, opening the first gate grants 5 times power boost to the user. This means that if we go by the calculation, Lee was at Mach 290 against Gaara. In chapter 52, Lee, who was using the first gate with his weights on, wasn't able to dodge the attacks of the sound ninja, but by just dropping his weights, he became 58 times faster than the speed of sound? This means that Lee gained more speed by dropping his weights than opening the 5 gates. If you are still skeptical of my argument, don't worry. It will make more sense when we discuss the multipliers of the 8 gates. But for now, Lee would be at subsonic speed, which is below the speed of sound. This puts Lee's speed somewhere between Mach 0.7 to 0.8, which means that Toji easily outspeeds base Lee by a long shot. But what about strength? Well, Toji was able to defeat Dagon, who was one of the 3 special grade disaster curses. He defeated Dagon with a playful cloud which boosts the user's strength. The stronger the user is, the more damage it does. This power allowed Toji to low diff Dagon. From this, we could safely assume that Toji, at the very least, is multi-city block level. Let me explain why I think that. Dagon was certainly on a whole different level than your average special grade curse spirit. In chapter 6, it's mentioned that in order to have a chance at defeating a special grade, you would have to do carpet bombing. Now this sounds vague since not only the destruction caused by carpet bombing can be different, but it's also scattered. In my opinion, what Gege meant is that if all the energy from the bombing were concentrated directly on the special grade curse spirit, it would be enough to kill it. This puts Dagon at city block level, if not high city block. But since Dagon's a disaster curse, I would say we scale it to a high city block level, and since Toji low diff Dagon, we could safely assume that Toji is at multi-city block level. As for base Lee, he not only defeated Naruto, but also blocked a kick from Sasuke without any problem. Even if we lowball Sasuke's fireball jutsu, it can at least destroy a large building. Now, he can defeat Sasuke while using the first gate, as he was about to use the initial Lotus. But the fact that he can effortlessly block Sasuke's kick easily puts Lee in between large building and city block level. Now, I know I'm being strict with Lee, but I do believe Lee would have easily defeated Sasuke without using the first gate, because along with casually blocking Sasuke's kick, Lee also defeated Naruto without breaking a sweat. But since we couldn't see the base Lee shine more in this fight, it's hard to put Lee higher than that. And since that doesn't come close to Toji's level, he takes the point in strength. Moving on to durability, Toji not only tanked Curse Technique Lapse Blue of Gojo, but also didn't take any major damage from Gojo's reverse technique Red. That attack at the very least can destroy a city block, but as I just mentioned, that attack neither broke a single bone in Toji's body, nor did it do any critical damage to him. Some people scale reverse technique Red at multi-city block level, but I think that doesn't apply to Gojo, who only got the hang of the reverse technique. So for this matchup, let's just assume it to be at a city level, which as a result would put Toji's durability at high city block level. Lee, on the other hand, gets hit by Kimimara's bones, but continues to fight him without any problem. Keep in mind that Kimimara's bones are quite stronger than tempered steel, as he was able to penetrate Gaara's sand. And keep in mind that Gaara's sand actually blocked needles that could penetrate 5 millimeters of tempered steel. And Lee had just come out of life-threatening surgery. My guy didn't even bother taking any rest and continued to take hits from Kimimaro. And speaking of Kimimara's bones, Lee was also able to punch Gaara's sand and tanked multiple attacks from Gaara. Lee also survived a hit from Kimimaro after he had activated the second level of his cursed seal. According to Gaara, that version of Kimimaro would have defeated him if he hadn't died from his disease. Based on these feats, I would say that Lee is at city block level. One might argue that Lee's durability should be at multi-city block level, since he was able to take hits from Gaara, who is more than capable of destroying multiple city blocks with his sand. This is a good argument, however, it would only be true if we were talking about the partial beast transformation of Gaara, not for the one that fought Lee. But even if we assume that, the extra jump of durability doesn't help Lee against Toji. Toji is not only faster than base Lee, but also has better strength stats. But don't worry, we still have 2 more versions of Rock Lee left. Next, we have Toji vs 5th Gate Rock Lee. Here by 5th Gate Rock Lee, I specifically mean the Lee we saw in the Chunin exam. Let's start with speed. According to Guy, a normal human being can only use 20% of their power. After that, the muscles start to quickly break down, which causes the brain to limit how much muscle power one is able to use. The first gate removes this limiter, which as a result allows one to draw 100% of their power. This means that after opening the first gate, Lee is 5 times stronger and faster than his base form. A simple math puts Lee's speed at Mach 3.5 to 4, which finally makes Lee faster than Toji. Apart from the first gate, the only gate that we know the actual strength of is the 8th Gate of Death, which makes the user 100 times stronger than their normal form. There's one more translation which mentions that opening 8 gates makes one 10 times stronger than the 5 Kage. However, we'll go with the first translation, as this makes our job a lot easier. Now, this 100 times power boost is exactly why I believe that calculation of 58 Mach from before is not consistent with the series. If we accept it, then it means that removing his weights gave Lee roughly half the power boost he would get from opening the 8th gate, which clearly doesn't make sense. The rest of the gates don't have such stated values, so we will assume that opening the 5th gate gives one a 10 to 20 times boost in their power. These numbers aren't a range, instead, these are our 2 values which we will use to calculate Lee's speed, the lowest extreme being 10 times while the highest extreme being 20 times. According to the first extreme, Lee would reach the speeds of Mach 7 or Mach 8 in 5th gate. If we go by the second extreme and assume that Lee is 20 times more powerful than his base form in 5th gate, then we would get a humble value of Mach 14 to 16, which is a lot faster than Toji's Mach 3. For comparison, some of the fighter jets can reach a speed of Mach 3, which makes Lee 5 times faster than your top-of-the-line fighter jets. This means that Lee would outspeed Toji with just the first gate. We don't even need to talk about the rest. Now, one can argue that the power one gains from opening the gates differs from person to person. This means that Lee might not be able to gain a 10 times or 20 times boost, which is a valid argument. But even if we believe that Lee is getting a 6 to 7 times boost after opening 5 gates, that still puts Lee at Mach 4.2 to 4.9, which, as you can see, is quite higher than Toji. However, I will say that 6 to 7 times boost just doesn't make sense to me. The 8 gates are a high-risk, high-reward type of forbidden jutsu. It's highly unlikely that you will only become 2 times stronger after opening 5 gates, which suddenly jumps up to 100 times after opening the 8th gate. This will only become more clear once you see the boost Lee gets after opening the 4th gate. It is even more clear in Guy's case, who showcases the difference between 7th and 8th gate. For example, by just opening the 4th gate, Lee becomes so fast that Naruto, Kankuro, and Shikamaru's whole team, who was barely able to follow Lee up until now, completely lost track of him. Even Kakashi had to use his Sharingan to keep track of 4th gate Lee. As for Guy, the boost he got after opening the 8th gate made him stronger than the 5 Hokage. This is why, in my opinion, the estimates of 10 times and 20 times actually make sense according to manga strength. If Lee was already a city block level in his base form, what happens when you increase that 10 to 20 times? Well, we get a Lee who is finally at the same level as that of Toji in strength. For example, if base Lee could generate 50 to 100 tons of force, then a simple math tells us that Lee is now capable of producing 500 tons to 1 kiloton of force. But then, how did Lee lose against Gaara, who was also at the multi-city block level? Well, being on the same level as someone doesn't mean you can defeat them. For example, in Lee's fight, it was mainly the drawback of opening the 5 gates that cost him the fight. If Lee could keep his 5 gates open for a longer time, then we would have seen different results. This brings us to durability. We all know what happened to Rock Lee after he opened the 5th gate. His muscles were tearing apart in 4th gate, and he could only use 5th gate for a few moments. And things got worse after the 5th gate ended. Lee was in no position to fight after that. Sure, he did stand up after that, but that was out of sheer will to prove that he's a great ninja. I mean, he was literally unconscious. So while Lee is on the same level of strength as Toji and totally smokes him in speed, it would be difficult for him to defeat Toji with such durability, especially when we consider that he didn't die instantly after taking Hollow Technique Purple. Now, that was the first time he used the 5th gate in an actual fight, so it makes sense that he couldn't use it for a long period of time. We haven't seen him use the 5th gate for longer periods of time. However, he has used the 6th gate quite a lot in the 4th Great Ninja War without receiving critical injuries. We'll talk about the 6th gate in a minute, but as far as Chunin Exam Lee is concerned, he is not winning against Toji. This leaves us with Toji vs. Post-Time Skip Lee. Post-Time Skip, Lee doesn't have many feats due to the little to no screen time Kishimoto gave him, but thankfully, the few feats we have would be enough to power scale him. Let's start with strength. This time, the current Lee, without activating any kind of gates, was able to kick Samehara out of Kisame's hands. Now, I know it was actually a duplicate of Kisame created by Nagata. However, that Kisame was strong enough to force Guy to use the 6th gate. This alone is enough to prove that Shippuden Lee is far stronger than 5th gate Lee of Chunin exams, who was struggling with Gaara. Find out how much stronger he actually is, let us look at his feat in Naruto movie The Last, where Rock Lee, along with the 6 other Jonin, splits a meteorite in half. And just from the looks of it, the other half of the meteorite that Rock Lee couldn't completely destroy was big enough to destroy the Hokage Peak along with the Konoha village. This basically means that Lee, along with 6 other ninja, created enough strength to destroy a large mountain. If we assume that Lee did the same damage as other 6 ninja, then it means that Lee has enough power to destroy a city. However, it's Lee we're talking about. He obviously did the most damage out of all the ninja. That's why, in my opinion, it's a mountain level feat. But even if we consider it a city level feat, Lee still takes the point in strength. Now, let's talk about speed. Lee was already faster than Toji by huge numbers. Post-time skip, Lee only takes it to the next level. He was faster than the truth-seeking orbs of 10 Tails Jinchuriki Madara, which allowed him to save Guy in chapter 667. The same Madara who was able to react to lightning release body flicker of 4th Raikage couldn't react to Lee's attack and gets cut in half. Now, even if we assume that Lee is now twice as fast as compared to the Chunin exam Lee, that still leaves us with 16 to 32 Mach. And I am being extremely generous here, as there are calculations which actually show that War Lee is thousands of times faster than the Chunin Lee. I don't even need to say it this time, but Lee dominates Toji in speed. As for durability, we haven't gotten any notable durability feats for post-time skip Rock Lee. However, we have noticed one thing, and that's Lee's ability to use gates without any serious injuries. This means that his durability while using gates has gotten far better than before. But we don't need that now. Why? Because even if we turn Lee into a glass cannon and say he can only launch 1 punch and 6 gate, he would still be insanely overpowered against Toji. Toji died from Hollow Technique Purple, which at most could destroy a large town when it is buffed by chance. If Toji couldn't survive a far weaker version of Hollow Technique Purple, then how can he survive a city level attack? No amount of durability can save Toji at this point. As a result, the Shippuden Lee dominates Toji. If you're interested in how Toji would do against Maki, then you can check out our video on Toji vs Maki.